As most of you know, though visitors would not, and maybe some who've been absent would not, but last week I spent in Birmingham, Alabama, and a very quick reprise as to why, for those who don't know. I was there because in the middle of the week on Wednesday, there was a march and a rally to commemorate 50 years since the 1963 spring campaign of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in that city, which became, of course, world known for the weeks in which it went on and on, eventuating in a lot of response by the city and the powers that be. You remember the dogs and the fire hoses and the beatings and all that went on for that campaign, and the jailing of Dr. King and many others, until finally they were able to break through and have some degree of success. And then a year later, greater success in the national level when the Public Accommodations Act was passed by the Congress, signed into law, thereby banning segregation forever from all of the public facilities in this country. So that was what happened 50 years ago. And this spring, the city is commemorating that, as well as later events in the year of '63. They will be commemorating two that happened in that city along the same lines. So I went because on April the 24th of that year, there was a demonstration at Woolworth's lunch counter in downtown Birmingham. And that was a segregated lunch counter. And some students sat in and others sat in to protest that and breaking the law in the process, the state law on the books in the process. And they were mainly black young people, and there was one white young woman, and that was my sister. And so my sister was drummed out of Birmingham Southern College, where she was a sophomore because of her act, and sent home. It has been a long time, but 50 years later, the college and the city combined to dedicate that particular day and this particular aspect of the celebration of 50 years in 1963, all the changes since, to my sister's memory and to her act and what she did. So they invited me to come give a keynote address as a part of a rally that would be held at the end of a march. And that's why I was there. It was a great experience, and I want to share just a few reflections on it with you, because I know so many have been so kind as to follow it all along and to ask me so much about it. And even while I was there, so many of you were so kind as to text me and phone me, and there were some emails and so on, and I do appreciate all of that obvious support. And I know many others who were not able to do those things. I could feel your presence anyway, so I thank you very, very much. And thanks the church for understanding my doing this. It was a great affair. I will give you some of the things just a few highlights. We gathered on the Birmingham Southern College campus to start with, and the president of the school and myself and the mayor of the city of Birmingham, William Bell, led the first marches out. They were mostly students from Birmingham Southern itself. There were hundreds and hundreds of students from Birmingham Southern that marched with us. And we led out from there. And as we went down 8th Avenue in Birmingham, we picked up more and more people. It was very touching to me that as we went through the heart of 8th Avenue, just past Legion Field in Birmingham, if you know it, that area, but if you don't, it's a rundown area, very dilapidated, a lot of projects and so on. And people would come out on the stoops and wave at us, and they had heard we were coming. Obviously, there's been a lot of publicity about this, but they came out, and as we came by their homes, they just started coming out. Some of them decided on the spur of the moment just to join in, and they would just drop what they were doing, and they would just drop loads of laundry and all, and just come and join what we were doing. And others would just continue to support us and wave and clap as we went by. So we picked up a number of people that way, which was very touching. I imagine some of those people I could look at and tell had been around in 1963 as young people, and probably were involved in some of the very actions we were commemorating. I certainly saw them occur and knew about them. And then as we went further, we picked up some students, some teenagers from Parker High School on 8th Avenue in Birmingham. They came out of their classes and just joined the march as we went by. And we picked up some singers and some musicians among those teens that would help us do some music along the way. And we picked up some middle school students as we went by middle school, and others as we got closer. And then as we got closer to the Kelly Ingram Park in downtown Birmingham, we had people standing out in front of office buildings and leaning out of office windows and shouting at us and waving us. I'm assuming they were shouting good things. I didn't hear that. But they were waving, and I was nothing in their hands, so I thought that was good. But anyway, we made it to Kelly Ingram Park. Now, Keller Ingram Park in the center of Birmingham is a very famous park internationally now. It is the park where a lot of the scenes of brutality took place during those weeks and months in 1963, with dogs and fire hoses and clubs and the like. A lot of arrests were made there. It is also the site on one of the corners of it, of the 16th Street Baptist Church, where 4 little girls in Sunday school were killed by a bomb in September of 1963, which many of you will remember. And that will be commemorated in September. Actually, on September the 11th, they will start 3 or 4 days of commemoration of that. I've been asked back for that, which I will try to do and go be part of. So all of that history is there in that Keller Ingram Park. We had a stage set up for us, and by the time we got to the park, I don't know how many people were with us. I've not heard an estimate yet, but it was just an awful lot of people, more than I ever thought would be there. It was a very, very big march, and was very, very gratified for that. I knew it wasn't because of my sister so much, it was because of what was at stake and what was understood to be the issue that we were really coming together around, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. So we had all of us there. And once everybody got inside and we had some singing, then we had a program, included remarks by Mayor Bell of Birmingham, and who's been very supportive and gracious through all of this, and by President Krulak of the School of Birmingham Southern College, which I'll talk about more in just a minute, and finally by myself as well. Actually, myself and then General Krulak came at the end. And then singing by the Birmingham Southern College Choir. Birmingham Southern College is a United Methodist school, like Huntingdon is in this conference in Montgomery, has always been. It's an old school from the 19th century. My father, my grandfather, and my sister all graduated from it. And so it has a lot of meaning to my family and to the United Methodist family in this part of the region, this region of the country. And it was good to see so much of Birmingham Southern coming out for this, and particularly the students who were such an inspiration. They seem to get it 50 years later, when they weren't even around for most of those 50 years, as well, if not more completely than some of the older people there did. I guess they'd read up a lot on it, but it seemed to just really connect with them, and they understood what the significance of this was, which was very amazing to me. I was struck by Mayor Bell's comments, 2 of them particularly. One of the things that he said, and he said it was the first time he'd ever publicly been able to acknowledge this, and he wanted to do it in that particular setting and scene. He said that he would not be mayor of Birmingham, Alabama, if it had not been for my sister, Marty, and a number of her cohorts who did those things in April of '63, and then what led out from it. And he said, I know that, and I owe a debt, and I want to pay it here in public, which I was very, very moved by. And he was also moved by something else he said. He said, I want you all to realize that what happened here was not just a spark that lit a movement that led to a particular outcome, such as the outlawing of public facility segregation in America, but it also lit a spark that the world is still keeping alive and using for current needs and current movements and current changes. And he said he was in South Africa about 10 years ago, I think he said, I'm not real sure, and he met Nelson Mandela there. And he was talking to Nelson Mandela, of course, the great leader of the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa, and he said to him, in a conversation they had, what is it that kept you going in those 26 plus years that you were in prison, straight years that you were in prison, day to day? What kept you from going nuts and losing heart and so on? And he said it with 3 things. It was my family, and I knew that they needed me to get back to them. There was the cause that I still felt was righteous and right, and Birmingham. Birmingham, he said. Birmingham. He said, every day I got up and I thought, Birmingham, Alabama, 1963. I know what happened there, and I know what's happening there now, which is so different in terms of what people are allowed to do and be. And if they could do it in Birmingham, Alabama, we can do it here. So that spark that was lit there even touched Nelson Mandela in jail, which I had never known. And then I was also told and learned, it was not told in a speech or anything, but I learned also that in the Arab Spring events of a couple of years ago, that across the Muslim world, that many of the shared tweets and other electronic messages between participants would refer to Birmingham '63 as you know, this is what we need to remember. Let's go back out tomorrow. They say we can't go back out tomorrow, but we're going to be on the streets again tomorrow. Why? Birmingham '63. They didn't stop because somebody said you can't go on the street tomorrow. So let's remember that. I didn't know that either. So obviously, it was not just a nostalgia trip, it was a very real and upfront and modern and contemporary application of a 50-year event. And that was very heartening, I think, to a lot of us who were there. President Krulak of the school of Birmingham Southern College is quite a man, too. He's only been president 2 years. He was the commandant of the Marine Corps, and he was, therefore, the top Marine, and he was on the Joint Chiefs of Staff in the Clinton administration. And a very fine man and well-known universally around the world. But he said he'd done everything in his life, and he was in Birmingham about 2 or 3 years ago, and they had an opening for the president. He just happened to be there for another reason, and he learned about it. He went out to the campus to look at it, never been there in his life. And it hit him that what he wanted to do was work with young people in education before he died. And he just wanted to give himself over to having people's minds and hearts expanded at this age of their lives. And so he applied for the job, went right up and applied for it. Hi, I'm the former chief head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and I want to be your college president. Oh, no, I don't think we do. Yes. So they threw all the other applications out, and they hired him. Something like that. But anyway, General Krulak is an amazing man. And he is his inspiration that really caused this event. He woke up one night, new into his presidency, and could not sleep because he just recently had been digging through some old materials, trying to learn more about his school, the school he was taking over, and what its history was. And he come across this incident in '63 with my sister, and he couldn't believe that he'd not been told about it. So the next day he went to the office and said, does anybody know about this? Nobody knew about it. He said, why was I not told about this? Have we ever done anything about this? No, we never did anything about this. We never acknowledged this? No. How wrong we were? No. Well, that's the end of that. We're going to. So then he calls up Maribel. He told me, he said, Talmadge, my son, and I was with me, and he and I and the general had some time alone together, and he said, and I called the city, and I talked to one of the underlings of the mayor, and I told them what I wanted, and they laughed, and they said, that's just not going to happen. That's just not going to happen. He said, you just get me the mayor, and he kept pursuing it. Finally gets the mayor, and people at Birmingham Southern said, we just can't do this. There's no way to logistically do it. It's overwhelming. It's just too much. He said, we're going to do it, and he got the mayor, and he persuaded the mayor it could be done, and when the two of them said that it would be done, then people started listening. I guess they started listening because of who they were, and they realized that they were serious. So then it began to go from there. So I want to pay a debt to him, and he was marvelous in his remarks and said the main thing he wanted to do was have the students there, the young people there, to take heart from this and to know that they could make a difference. And they could make a difference from the right now, not just in terms of getting an education and going out and getting a job and finally down the road making a difference, but right now, where they were, as they were. It doesn't have to be a demonstration. It can be anything that touches a human life that's worthwhile. So that's a little of some of the setting of what happened, and it was very gratifying. My remarks are currently being edited for publication, and when the hard copies are ready, I'm going to put a number of them on both sides of the street in the FLC and in the sanctuary. They'll be in the office as well. We'll let you know when that happens, and you're welcome to take as many as you want for you and whoever else you want to give them to, and I'll let you decide for yourself whether those were appropriate. I won't try to recapitulate what I said when I was there. There has been a lot of coverage, which I'm grateful for, from the media. Many of you have told me you've seen it. If you have not and want to try to get online, there's some of the sources that I have said that either I have seen or been told about that are particularly good. The Birmingham Southern College site itself has an awful lot of good stuff on this, including some good video of the march and some interviews with me and so on. Also, CBS 42 in Birmingham and ABC 3340 in Birmingham have a lot of good coverage. The TBN network, Trinity Broadcast, was there in full force, and they have a lot also. They're doing a whole year documentary on Birmingham in commemoration of this. I had a long talk with them, and they're going to be back for other things going on the rest of the year there. It's also available on al.com, which is the Birmingham News online source. They have a lot of good stuff there, too. A big slideshow by a guy from Birmingham News who did a tremendous number of pictures and all together a great collage, and that's good to see. So, and there may be a lot of others, too, that you found. Somebody was telling me this morning that they saw it on Fox and so on. I don't know. I was too busy to know. But I have, when I sent home, accessed a few of those, and you're welcome to do that and find what you can. But I think it's worthwhile to do, just not for me, but because of the nature of the occasion. Now, I want to conclude by just sharing with you a couple of thoughts about all that and our faith. Because after all, this is the Christian community. And What matters to us is how is all that related to who we are as disciples of Christ on a pilgrimage of faith. One of the things that was really brought home to me by this experience was the absolute and utter relevance of the cross of Christ, and our own crosses. And I don't mean that in any morbid sense or melodramatic sense. I mean the choice one makes. As Jesus said, it must be a choice. You take up your cross and follow me. I'm not going to thrust it on you. I'm not going to back you in a corner and give you one. But if you want to pick it up and come along with me, I'd sure appreciate some company on the journey. And we may not run into sunny weather all the time, but when it gets bumpy and stormy, we'll know why we're on the journey, and it will not stop us from completion. And out of it will come redemption and renewal and new life. This I promise you. And that whole motif of redemption, cross, resurrection came really home to me during those days. Because that is what those people did, not just Marty, but so many of them did. They chose to put themselves out there in a time when to do that was literally to put everything you had on the line, as I said in my remarks in Birmingham, as you'll read. It really was to put everything on the line, more than we can ever imagine now. And so they did that. And out of that did not come anything immediate that seemed to be all that worthwhile, except a lot of bloodshed and chaos and upset folk. But in time and over time, God was able to weave his will through other people who came along and new generations and different developments until finally we saw the fruits of all of that labor, or the resurrection of all of that cross-bearing. And I wanted to remind myself, and hopefully you remind yourselves as well, that unless we invest, so like what Mary Helen was saying about having some stuff come back from Russia with the children and all, and they put a lot out there, now it's coming back. Unless we invest, unless we lose something, unless we're willing to put it out there, we're not going to get much back. Our God is not a God of cheap grace and easy accomplishment. He's a God of journey, a God of pilgrimage, a God of try it again, a God of pick it up again, a God of, well, they may be through, but we're not. That's the kind of God we got. It's kind of roll up your sleeves, Jesus is whom we follow. And so I was just really reminded of that again, and how true it is, and how real that is, and really how good that is. Because I don't know about you, but I don't need to get off that easy. I need the pressure of, what are you going to do next? And will you pick this up? You picked that up and it worked pretty well, or at least it's on its way. What are you going to pick up next? And if nothing happens with it that's really good right now, will you still pick it up? Will you carry it anyway? Because it's right. Because it ought to happen. Because it ought to be heard, or it ought to be done. And let me worry about the timing of when somebody else finally hears that message. Just because anybody's listening right now, are you going to quit giving the message or walking the walk? I have a lot of time. You may not have as much temporal time within this framework of physical living as I have, of course, in terms of my eternal work. But if you do something now, I will make sure that eternally it makes a difference. And so I was reminded of all of that, and I feel like that was sort of brought home to me in a special way during those days. And I think that's one of the key things to take away from such an experience. And I hope that all of us will see ourselves as willing cross-bearers, not as martyrs, but as willing cross-bearers. Pick up what we can do. Do what we can. Sacrifice. Give some. Go out of our comfort zone. Follow the Jesus who may lead places that will raise our eyebrows, but will also eventually raise our spirits, and it will eventually raise the human race. And so that is what we try to do. It was a great experience. I thank you for the privilege of being allowed to be there, and for those days. And if I go back, I will come to you again and tell you of that. But for now, that seems to be what it amounted to. There was a lot of follow-up in terms of a lot of people that came forward afterward and have come forward since via electronic means with their reactions to it that are very heartwarming, people from beyond here. And so I'm going to be busy trying to get some thank yous back out in the next few days and weeks, but it will all happen. But I'm glad to be home. And I'll say this to you as well. As I was coming home, I was thinking about this, and I told Talmadge this, my son. I said, it's good to be able, when you're through with something like this, to be able to go home and to know that when you go home, you're where you ought to be. That you're serving now in this part of your life where you ought to be, and working with people on things that matter to you and to them, and trying to be the church, because it doesn't get much better than that in any era, for any reason, with any people. So thank you for being who you are, and for this opportunity to be in your midst as friend and pastor and co-worker on the journey. And I hope and pray that there'll be other opportunities for me to share some of the things that occurred not only there, but that may occur in the future in relationship to redemption and God's mercy sightings here and there. And when you have some, share them with me. These are good things to share with each other. When my remarks come out and you see them, if you want to talk about them, let's do. Keep the conversation going. It's holy conversation. And God smiles on us as we seek to be more fully His. Father, I thank you for this week, and I thank you for these dear people, and I thank you for the ways in which you work to change this, your world. Help us to never give up on you, because you never give up on us or the possibilities we have in us. Help us to be as good as you think we are and that you want us to be, and to help us to also, each and every day, find something kind to say, something decent to represent, and something Christ-like to imitate, so that we are never far away from the one who is near to us. In his blessed name and for his sake, amen.
Amen.
As we close this morning, we are going to sing, what is it?